Hello, everybody. My name is Samantha Krenning. If you haven't joined me before, welcome. Today we're going to go over part of Wall-E. Very fun and interesting movie. If you haven't seen it before, it's a Pixar animated movie. Go watch it. It's very interesting. One of the reasons I want to talk about it is because Wall-E is like a masterclass on nonverbal interaction. So we see a lot of emotion conveyed, we see a lot of personality conveyed, all without words, or with very, very, very few words. It's very interesting. So it's all about nonverbal communication. It's really interesting for somebody in human robot interaction to watch it. So I hope that I can give you that perspective. So we have like happy, optimistic music paired with what looks like, dystopian, the world has died. Ah, we have Wall-E. Wall-E is listening to the happy, optimistic music. Everything else is still, nothing else is happening, and Wall-E is going about his life, doing his thing, playing the optimistic music. And cockroaches live. Cockroaches shall never die. So at first I thought that Wall-E was interested by the living being, the cockroach, but instead he's interested in the frisbee. What looks like a frisbee. Wall-E is interested in little bits of trash, it looks like, or, what others might consider trash. He saves things like frisbees. He's not surprised to see this little cockroach around. But there's nothing else around. No other animals, no people, no other robots. Wall-E just seems to be alone. And yet he's going about listening to happy, optimistic music. Now, why do I keep mentioning that? So, why do you listen to music? Is there any part throughout your day where you need to listen to music to fulfill a task? If you're a musician, then yes, probably that's where your livelihood comes from. But you don't need to listen to your favorite song on your way to work. You don't need to. That's not gonna, that's not one of the absolute necessary steps for you to get to work, right? You don't need to listen to music while you're, working out or just around the house or something. That's not the part, like that's not you finishing a goal, right? So why do you listen to music? Generally, people listen to music because they like it, because it brings pleasure and enjoyment, and they like it, right? It can have powerful impacts on your state of mind, your stress levels. Music is great to us, right? What about to a robot? If a robot is simply programmed to fulfill a goal, then there's, they're not listening for music. Any of the AI agents that we have now are not, emotionally impacted by music. It doesn't matter if you play music or not. It's not part of their goal. And in fact, it might just get, like, if they have to listen to something, it might just be something that they need to try to filter out. Like with natural language, oh, that's just background noise, let's get rid of it so I can pay attention to something else. And so the fact that Wall-E is just going about his job playing music, that's energy that he's consuming. And this looks like a dystopia. He is essentially alone on the planet. So why is he using energy doing this? Why is he just going about doing his, everyday stuff, playing optimistic music? It seems to point at personality. He seems optimistic. Okay, I only made it 9 seconds in, and we have to look at this again. First of all, a lot is being conveyed with Wally's eyes, right? So the angle that his little eyes are at and the position. So much emotion can be conveyed with this, right? So if you have raising up, that can often be, like a sign of fear. If they're kind of tilted out, it can maybe be a little bit of sadness, right? There's a lot with eyebrows that can convey different types of emotions, and also just what this area around there is doing. So the whole, even though it seems almost like binoculars, almost just the way that they're rotated in or out, or they raise up or down, that can convey a tremendous amount of emotion. And even though we don't have eyes like that, we can read into those basic changes. It's like a caricatured, what we call a caricatured robotic appearance, where even though our eyes are not like that, we know that they're supposed to be eyes, and we can read into changes and ascribe emotions to them. Okay, so let's start this again. He does a big sigh of relief. Okay, I only made it 8 seconds again, but we have to do this again. Okay, so Wally comes out. He looks at, this fresh, shiny, new day and takes a big sigh. Okay, so sighs with humans there are lots of reasons why we sigh. A lot of the times when we sigh, it's not purposeful. Our body automatically sighs, a big deep breath in before sighing outward. So when we're normally breathing, I'm not a medical doctor, parts of the lungs can kind of deflate, and a sigh will kind of reinflate those, those parts of the lungs. Ask a medical doctor for details, not me. But that is one part. It's an automatic part of just, human anatomy. We can also sigh, like a sigh of relief. Some of the main stress relieving activities deal with breathing exercises. There are lots of different breathing exercises that can rapidly decrease stress in the body. But then a lot of sighing can also convey emotions, more negative emotions. Sadness, depression, things like that can be associated with sighing. So there's a wide range of what sighing means. But robots don't have any of those things at this point in time, right? They don't have lungs. Parts of their lungs can deflate during normal operation, and they have to reinflate them with a sigh. They don't have stress that can be, physiologically relieved with a sigh, a big sigh of relief. And right now, they don't have negative emotions like sadness, depression, things like that you would associate with sighing as well. So Wally is sighing, and we know that he doesn't have, lungs that are being benefited. So it conveys emotions. And because he's going out and doing this in the morning, like he sees the first rays of sunshine, and it's like he's breathing in the new day, but he doesn't have lungs. So this just goes along with him being an optimistic person, optimistic robot, right? He seems to have this personality of optimism and is like one of those really annoying morning people. Okay, not all morning people are annoying. Yeah, sorry. an optimistic morning person that we all wish we could be, and yet many of us are not. And then he's so happy, he's so, relieved about, hey, it's a new day, the sun is shining, and we are just ready to get on it. And then he runs over his little pet cockroach and expresses concern. He backs up, he seems very concerned and worried and scared, and then very relieved when it turns out the cockroach is okay. Okay, so we have to do this again. Happy new day. Ah! Another sigh of relief, and then the fear response, the sigh of relief when he realized that, his pet cockroach was okay, and then that sort of forceful, not exactly angry, but parental, go over here, go over here, go over here out of the way. You are going to do this, you are going to do this now. That kind of stern direction that you would tell to a little kid to try and keep them out of the way. You've just been afraid, and of course you don't want to, that can turn to anger. You don't want to take the anger out of them, but you're like, you need to do this so you don't get hurt for your own good, right? Okay, so that all happens. That is so much emotion and emotional type of reaction in the first 16 seconds. So we're gonna play this clip again. Happy day. Fear. Sadness. Relief. Anger. Sternness. Ordering. Stay here. Behind me. And the cockroach ignores him, of course. Alright, and Wally is just a trash compactor. A curious trash compactor. Playing around with all the trash. And curiosity, little toys. So he goes through things. Okay, so what does a robot like Wally think is valuable, right? So he's playing around with all of these items. Some that he thinks are interesting, he's putting in a lunchbox to go, right? We don't know what he's doing with that, but he's putting interesting bits of refuse in his lunch pail. And then he comes across a box, a hinged box with a diamond ring in it, and throws the ring away and keeps the hinge box because he's interested in the hinge box. He doesn't care about this shiny thing. So that's interesting. Keeps the shoe and keeps working. Does not want to keep the fire extinguisher. All right, and he's productive. Wally is a productive little guy. That's a lot of trash that was compacted. All right, so it's the end of a very productive day, and it looks like Wally has a home, has his little lunch pail. He turns on lights. It's extra energy usage, right? Why is he using lights if he doesn't necessarily need to see? Why is he expending this energy? Keeps a movie in the toaster. Nice. Playing something on an old iPad. He's playing a musical, it looks like. He's playing a musical for his own enjoyment. I mean, if you go home after a long, hard day of work and you want to relax, maybe you'll put a show on, something that you enjoy. why would a robot do that? If the robot doesn't have, some sort of personality, some sort of wants and desires. I mean, I highly doubt that WALL-E's creators programmed a trash collector to like musicals and to want to collect random things. All right, random stuff is a little bit connected with trash, even though it's like the opposite of the goal, right? Because if you collect the junk, then that's the opposite of compacting, getting rid of the trash. But music has nothing to do with WALL-E's job at all. So what is built into WALL-E that allows him to even recognize something like a musical and want to watch it? WALL-E has his own personality. He has things that make him happy. We don't have that with robotics right now. We don't have that with AI. If you have a reinforcement learning agent, you're essentially programming in a goal. You will get the most reward if you optimize your reward function, and that means that you're satisfying this goal, you're completing this goal. You have to learn how to do it. So you're not telling the reinforcement learning agent how to do something, you're just saying like, this is the end goal, find an efficient way to achieve it. That's it. They don't have any wants or desires outside of their task. And WALL-E does. And how did that happen? Maybe it's why all of the others have died and he's there. He seems to be very flexible, right? He's adaptive. He goes out among all of the other inoperable WALL-E robots and takes part so that when some of his parts break down, he can fix himself and continue on. Oh, and he got the frisbee to be like a hat. That's so cute. That's also an interesting Oh, we have a spork. We have a spork. We have a cup of spoons, a cup of forks. Where does it go? Okay, I have to stop. That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so in supervised learning is one of the main branches of machine learning. It's the most studied branch of machine learning. One of the main tasks of supervised learning is classification. So let's say you have a whole bunch of spoons and a whole bunch of forks. You come up with some sort of classification algorithm that, given a new, never before seen utensil, you can say, this is a spoon or this is a fork. That's what you want to do. That's what classification is all about. Because modern machine learning is based on induction, where you use many different examples, many different pieces of data in order to build the model that says, is this a spoon or is this a fork? Your whole model is based on past examples. So if you come up with a new example that is far outside of everything that you've seen before, your classification algorithm is not going to be able to handle it well. So if you give it a spork, it's going to be like, well, it's part spoon, part fork. I'm not really sure. Or if you give it a knife, it's going to say like, what on earth are you doing? I have no idea what this is. I'm just going to say it's one of these and hope for the best. That's part of induction. It's also part of why machine learning algorithms that are based on induction can never be guaranteed to be 100% accurate. It just can't happen. Okay, so anyway, I love that. I'm totally going to take this clip and show it to my students in my machine learning class, because that is a perfect example of classification. You have a cup of spoons, a cup of forks, and you're like, oh, what is this new thing? Well, he's saving all sorts of things, watching a movie in the background. Recording the music. Nice. It shows that he likes it, that he wants to know it. And here he's trying to mimic what he sees. He sees them holding hands and he wants to mimic that. So he sees people on screen holding hands and he wants to try and mimic that with his own hands. That was a really quick thing that is supposed to convey more of an emotion of maybe loneliness and longing. And I get that. But what I see when I look at that really is this seamless ability to try to learn from demonstration. Right? He sees people doing something, tries to mimic it. That is a really big issue. One of the reasons it's an issue is something called the correspondence problem. If you have a person that has, head and arms with certain types of joints, legs with different types of joints, we can move in certain ways. You can't move like this joint in different ways, right? So the way that we can move is limited by our anatomy. Robots, unless they're a perfect humanoid, they don't have the same joints, the same range of motion. Maybe they have a greater range of motion. Maybe they have a different type of joint. It's not a ball and socket joint for what counts as their shoulder. So even if they approximate a movement like we do, they can't directly copy it, right? Our motion is not going to directly correspond from our anatomy to the robot's anatomy. And that's a big deal. And so not only was WALL-E trying to exactly mimic what somebody was doing, what a person was doing with a hand when he had kind of, claws, but we understood, it's the same type of movement. He actually took his other hand to mimic what the other person was doing and to mimic that whole interaction. And there is a lot of complexity going on. I think that that's overall above what we can do in terms of learning from human demonstration right now. There's a whole thing about learning from human demonstration. It's part of the subfield of interactive machine learning, which is what I got my PhD in. Very, very cool. It goes toward the idea of, how can normal everyday people who are not machine learning experts, they don't have a PhD in machine learning, how can they teach robots to do things? How can they personalize robots? And it's not easy. It's not easy. So everything that WALL-E just did there is very impressive. WALL-E seems to be cleaning out his pail. Just trying to look up at the sky. Stargazing. Oh, but then he sees an alert. A weather alert, it looks like. Dust storm. Tries to finish his task quickly. And close the door. Man, hopefully it's not like a garage door that has to close and then open again. Oh. Okay, so he's safe inside. With the cockroach. And he goes to sleep. Ah, he rocks the thing like a swing. People often like rocking for various reasons. You rock children to sleep and things like that. That type of neurochemical thing is not built into robots. So that is really interesting. What could possibly go on to make a robot want to rock itself to sleep? That's really interesting. So Eve is very fancy looking, and WALL-E is stalking her. So she's scanning things, and there are like these little dots and then a red light, and then she moves on. So we think that the red light is saying she hasn't found whatever she's looking for. Oh, WALL-E's scared. Very scared and sad. But the cockroach will not die. Cockroaches will never die. My first reaction to seeing a cockroach would not be, hey, let's climb on you. What? Oh, Eve is trigger happy. Whatever she's looking for, it is not something that is alive. Okay, and so Wally is shaking. Wally is shaking, and this is pretty obviously out of fear. Why do people shake in fear, right? We have adrenaline, we have, physiological reactions that can make us shake. We can also shiver with the cold, right? So there's anxiety, fear, cold. Those are the main things that can make us, shake and shatter like that. I doubt that Wally would have been built to have that type of reaction, right? So is this a developed thing? Is it a learned thing? Did he watch a lot of things about humans and take on some of their characteristics? And he's expressing this to another robot. So what is the benefit of it's very interesting. He's conveying a lot of emotion with his actions, and none of that is built in. None of that is part of his his natural physical body. Eve, with her eyes, even though they're electronic, they're conveying emotion, anger. Scans Wally. Of no interest. Wally is not what she is looking for. She's gonna go away and not pay him any mind. And he is stalking her. Oh, poor Wally. And she shook her head. She shook her head. This is a pretty common cultural thing. This means no. This means no. Oh, and just out and open, she is gone to sleep. No, he ignored his daily job to follow her around, right? So he's able to choose to not fulfill his function. He doesn't have to collect trash. He chooses to collect trash. He can ignore that. He left a gift, an artistic gift. He made art. Wally made art and left it for her, and she ignored it. And he expressed his frustration by kicking something, and it turned out badly. So he expressed his frustration. He made art to mimic her. Oh my goodness. It's kind of adorable and very interesting. And we do not have robots that do this right now. Wally is in danger. Eve is trigger happy. She is trigger happy. Okay, so Eve is scanning all sorts of things and being upset. She's slamming doors closed. And instead of being upright, she just blew up a ship. She just blew up a ship in frustration. And now so she's leaning forward. She's kind of hunched forward. She's despondent and frustrated, and she took out. Eve was getting very frustrated. She was getting very frustrated, and you can tell, not because she is saying anything, but because of her actions, because she's using more force than necessary. She's slamming doors. She keeps searching for something, and she's not finding whatever she's searching for. And she's taking that personally, like a person would, not like a robot today would. She's all alone, so this is not just a human-robot interaction thing. She's alone besides Wally, but she's ignoring Wally. So what purpose is there in expressing so much emotion? It just seems like it's her emotion, right? She's not putting on a facade and acting angry and acting frustrated in order to convey that to a person or to another being. She's just frustrated and angry, and she's going to shoot everything in her way. Okay, and then there's this part where Wally realizes that she's really frustrated and that she just blew up a bunch of ships, and that's scary. But instead of being scared, this very, lonely, optimistic robot is, trying to get closer so that he can offer her some sort of comfort. And then they introduce themselves, and they say, Eve, Wally, so they know each other's names. They can say each other's names mostly. It makes Eve laugh, right? There's physical laughing, and you can also tell with the expressions in her eyes. Again, this is what we would call a caricatured morphology, where she has basic body and 2 arms and a head, and she has an electronic display that conveys eyes, and the eyes show emotion, right? Like if they're really narrowed, it's like narrowed eyes, she's frustrated, or if they're angled down and in, that can be anger. But then they change the shape of them and everything to convey laughter. The half moon thing is almost like your eyes are closing in laughter, and so you see just kind of the half moon of the eyes. All right, so that whole interface with the eyes is conveying a lot of emotion. She's also laughing. There's all sorts of things in there with introducing herself to Wally. So her first reaction is just to shoot anything that moves. That seems like not a good way to program a robot. So Wally has taken Eve to his house. The packing things, and she does all of them really quickly. Like it's almost like she's squinting an eye, and there's surprise, like a blink. Nervousness, right there, anxiety. He shows her the movie, and he's showing excitement and a plan. Oh, and he dances. He shows her about, how to dance, and then says, "You do it now." And then he stops her, but doesn't convey anger, like, "You're messing up my house." He says, "Oh, why don't we try this?" That's a really positive rhetorical thing to do. And she is dangerous, man. Like a kid who doesn't know her strength, and he's broken his eye, and he's like, "I got this. Don't try and help. Don't try and help. It's okay. I'm not mad. Just don't help." And she finds a lighter, looks interested, her head's leaning forward, she's kind of blinking. Now their eyes are big, like, fire! But he's more interested in her. He wants her attention. And is able to convey that, not just with her, with her name, but joint attention is a difficult thing. He's getting her attention with tapping. Oh man, it's a plant. It's a plant. She scans it. It's green instead of red. Something's going on. Oh, God. That's like... Poor Wally. Wally is going to be like, "Oh my goodness, I broke her. What just happened?" Looks like she finally fulfilled her task, which is nice. But poor Wally, he's going through an emotional roller coaster. All right, so this is only the first part. I know I had so much to say on emotions and personality, but it's very interesting. I can continue on and do a part 2 with the rest of Wally. But really from an HRI perspective, human-robot interaction, the first part of Wall-E is just so phenomenal, pointing at the importance of nonverbal communication. Most of the nonverbal communication here is conveyed through eyes, physical motion, and sound. And that is really interesting. And I was mentioning before something about joint attention. Imagine if I were to poke you and say, hey, look over there. You're not going to look at my finger, right? You're going to look in the direction that my finger is going, and you're going to look at whatever I'm pointing at, and we'll both be looking at the same thing. That is very difficult, right? My dog is smart. She's learned to open doors, and she cannot get joint attention, right? I point at something and she looks at my finger. And it's not an easy thing to try to build into robots. And both of them, even though they've never interacted before, they look like they were made by different people, made, one was made, with much better technology than the other, and yet they're able to communicate in this human-like way, even though it's nonverbal. So it's very interesting, because if you think of it that way, then human-like communication, right, having good human-robot interaction can make it easier for lots of different robots made by different people, all with different tasks, different goals, different directives, to communicate with each other. Cool.